Hi guys, Ballard here, Blair Ballard for the Bond Experience in London. Welcome to St James's. We're back here again. For those of you who don't know, St James's is the part of London where you'll find the oldest brands associated with 007. Not many can lay claim to being as well established as James Lock & Co, though. They set up business here in 1676. To put that in some kind of perspective, that's just 10 years after the Great Fire of London and 100 years before our friends across the pond gained their independence in America. They have very famous patrons including Lord Nelson, Oscar Wilde, Winston Churchill, Charlie Chaplin. Douglas Fairbanks Jr. had a flat above the shop as well. But we're here because of the Bond connection. Of course, you'll know the Dr. No Trilby from the first film. That was from Lock & Co, but also Oddjob's bowler hat. Let's go and find out what it's all about.
Good morning, my name is Michael Hagan. I'm the retail manager of Lock & Co Hatters in St James's Street.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolute pleasure.
Here in this amazing shop. The history is oozing out of every nook and cranny here. It's absolutely incredible. Obviously, for the fans out there, the main association that James Lock & Co have with the world of James Bond is the Dr. No Trilby. How did that all come about, and how are you absolutely sure that it was a Lock & Co hat was used?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been lucky enough over, we've got decades and decades of sort of history. Obviously, we were founded in 1676, so we go back a very long way. Lucky enough with certain hats, obviously we have archive material, so we know that something was purchased here. Now with that particular hat, which is called a Sandown, it was previously to being worn by Bond. It was a hat we had already made. We used to call a racing felt. So effectively, it's a hat specifically made for racecourse meetings. So there wasn't any lining inside, which meant you could wear it for a longer amount of time without it getting sort of too hot. And so, but the Sandown actually is a hat that before Connery wore it, was part of our range effectively. So they would have come in and said, we're looking for a particular hat, and we would have worked out what was right for the time. And in actuality, that particular hat is something that ordinarily wouldn't fit to somebody of that height. It's quite a short brim, so they went against type there, and actually I think probably made it more of an iconic hat by doing that, because it normally would fit a wider brim, but I think because of the style of the time, early 60s, that sort of look was quite worked quite well for what they were going for. So, and
for the layman, and I count myself among them, what's the difference between a Trilby and a Fedora? Is it?
Yeah, okay, it's all about terminology with hats. So effectively, a Trilby just effectively means a felt hat. A Fedora is a felt hat of a wider brim, and a Trilby is a felt hat of a short to medium brim. So the hat they wore would have been a Trilby, it's a shorter brim.
And wearing wise, would you normally, is a Trilby more sort of for day-to-day wear, or wearing in the country and the Fedora is wearing in the city, or how does that all work?
Either or, but for a lot of sort of country style hats tend to be sort of wider brim for for rain and things like that. But the sort of the hat, especially the hat that sort of Connery wore, that sort of shorter brim is a sharper look. It's a city look. I think that, so although originally it's a country hat, it got very much transferred to that sort of especially wearing it the suit as well. Because you wear that with a suit, it looks completely different if you're wearing a wax jacket and Wellington boots or something. So it gives it a very, very different look, and that's why it's unusual. As that hat, ordinarily you wouldn't wear it with what he was wearing, but it works. It became part of his signature, really. So.
Yeah, iconic, absolutely. Now, you confirmed obviously that the hat was using Dr. No, and from Russia with Love as well. Is that confirmed?
Yeah, yes, and I think Goldfinger as well. I think, yeah.
So they were all Lock hats. Well, there you go, guys. That's confirmation from the man himself. Do you know of any other instances in the Bond films where Lock hats were definitely used? I'm thinking there was a straw hat used in Goldfinger on the golf course. Is that possibly a Lock? Yeah,
possibly. I think there's a lot of times is where we've had so many styles over the years, and sometimes we get directly approached by the productions themselves to actually sort of purchase hats, and sometimes actually production assistants will come in and buy something which we don't realise is actually for a film. And that hasn't happened. That hasn't just happened with Bond films. Happened, even up until sort of modern times. So chances are, probably yes, but it's not something we can say definitely because we haven't got the records for it. Whereas obviously, the grey top hat that Roger Moore wore in I think View to a Kill would have been what we call an Ascot. So that's one of our sort of grey top hats. So certain hats we can pick and say that's definitely one of ours. Sometimes because it's a generic design, it's a bit more difficult to sort of pin down. Say, that's a lock hat. So.
Yeah, because some people are talking about, again, another Connery hat that he wore in Thunderball, the straw hat he wore when he was in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
possibly a lock hat, but more likely to have been something local, maybe.
I think so, purchased, because the nature of that particular hat's quite rustic. I don't think it's something we would have done at that time actually like that. So I think that's probably purchased on production side.
Oh,
so, yeah.
right, okie dokes. Right, so if I walk in and I'm looking for a Sandown, I believe it only comes in one colour now.
Yes.
Because some folks, I know some of you out there as well, you're very handy with your DVD players, and you know when the quality was upped in the and you could see the different colours used. Some people think it looked green, some people look dark grey or darker brown than the current Sandown you do. Is it possible that that the hat that was used was a green hat, but from a previous, obviously, 1960s or whatever?
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, a lot of it is probably to do maybe colour correction on the actual sort of prints themselves. I think that will probably have a you know, sort of bear into it. But also with felt hats, colour is quite difficult to control in the felting process. So actually, when some grey felt hats, depending on what sort of light you're in, can actually have a green tinge to them.
Right.
So if you marry that with the fact that you've changed the sort of the actual colour of a film, depending on what print you're looking at, that can possibly make it a bit different. The Sandown has always been made in brown because of what we call racing felt, but we have also made it in grey in the past. So it may well have actually been that. But again, in photography with film lights and then getting corrected over the years, you more than likely would actually the colour will probably look slightly different.
Okay, fair enough. Right, well, I think I'd like to be sized up if possible. I don't know what size my head is.
We'll check your size now.
Okie dokes.
Let's have a look for you. So you're going to stand in here, just like so. That's it, perfect.
Huge cranium.
So you've got a size 62 head.
Is that centimetres or?
That's centimetres, yes.
Right, okay.
And effectively, the great thing about that is all of our hats come in your size, so you can choose from anything. So
very nice. Well, let's go and dig one out, and then we'll try it on.
So this is the Sandown, which is obviously the hat we've been talking about. It starts life looking quite differently. It doesn't look very attractive in its current state. So it's what we call an unblocked hat. So they always start with this sort of dome shape. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put a bit of a shape into it for you, so it looks more like a hat. So central crease, pinch, pop the brim out, and then we get it looking more like a hat.
So cool. That is
so hopefully
cool.
This should fit. So let's pop this on for you. Always front to back.
Front to back.
There we go. And that looks rather smart.
What do you think, guys? Pretty slick. Now, I don't know about you, but yeah, I could pass as Connery. On the records front, because I know folks have been asking about if you've got the patterns for Connery's hat or the Roger Moore and so on and so forth. Are there records? Are the records available, or are they?
We do have some records. Also, you see behind you, obviously, we have records of head shapes, and which are going back sort of many years with lots of different sort of people that we've had.
Pierce Brosnan, there we go.
Yes, Mr. Brosnan's there.
I've got a bigger head than Pierce Brosnan. That's a claim to fame.
But over the years, but again, because of the nature of the business being around for so long, we've had obviously and a lot of records have been lost in floods over the last sort of 30 or 40 years, and so a lot of our records now are kept off site. So I think also sometimes I think back when these films were being produced, especially the early ones, it was just a film production back then. It wasn't what we know today as the phenomenon of Bond. It was just another film being made. So they probably didn't attach any significance to it when they came in, because they were just selling a hat for a film. Obviously now we look back after over sort of 50 or 60 years and we're like, oh my God, why didn't you keep those records? But then it would have just been a sale probably. So yeah.
Didn't you have a bomb, an unexploded bomb in the basement at one point?
We did indeed. Yes, we were bombed in Second World War, and actually sort of almost where we stand in here, a bomb actually came, an incendiary bomb came all the way through the building, through to the basement, but didn't detonate.
Thank goodness.
And was actually manhandled out by members of staff and bomb disposal and taken over to Green Park to be detonated. And we've got a hole actually in the basement ceiling, which is the bomb hole, so it's the exact shape of the bomb. So we're very lucky, because if that had gone off, we wouldn't be standing here now, because it's a timber frame building, the place would have gone.
Sure, so absolutely. But
so.
Talking about that, I mean, this building, I mean, you said 1676.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't this building, but it was, this used to be a pub, didn't it, originally?
Originally, the building was built about 1600, and originally was a pub called the Feathers. The original hat shop was actually on the other side of St James's Street, and when the lease became available for here, the family moved across the road. And the reason why they moved across the road is purely because this side of the road gets the sunlight.
And the rich people would like to...
Exactly, and also this is the first side of the road to get pavement. Which meant if you had lots of money, you could shop for longer and didn't want to get your clothes dirty, you shopped on this side of the road. So the family moved across in 1759, so we've been in this shop since 1759.
So I know one of your most famous customers obviously was Lord Nelson.
Indeed.
It's, I suppose, feasible if he walked in today, he would recognise...
Yeah, I think apart from the actual layout's pretty much exactly the same. Really the two main changes have been carpet and lighting.
So he would go, my favourite hat shop.
Yeah. But so this room wasn't here. Then this room would have been actually a storeroom, because the store only actually came up to here. Right. But other than that, really, everything else is pretty much identical as when he would have been in 1805. So
now, I know that a lot of people are interested in Lord Nelson and his... Obviously, the bicorn hat, the green with the eye shade that you made for him. There is one of that's not the actual hat, is it? That was
this is actually an exact replica of what he ordered on the day. So you may not get it with the reflections of the camera, but that's the order that was placed, the exact order in 1805, and you can see where the hat itself has been sketched with all the dimensions. You can see the bottom there, the visor. Because the misconception with Nelson was that he was blind in one eye. He was actually partially sighted, and he had a lot of problem with direct sunlight when he was taking measurements. So the idea of that visor was to basically shield his eyes so he could sort of take measurements more easily.
Wow, well there you go. But that's history, you see. But literally Nelson could walk in here and he'd know his bearings. Very cool. Okay, so we've had a look at the Sandown. Next on, you're obviously also famous because of the bowler hat was invented here.
Yes, it was.
If I'm correct. Yeah. How did that come about?
So it was invented in 1849, and obviously with the commonly called the bowler hat that we actually call the cook hat, is the Earl of Leicester, who owned Holcombe Hall, which is in Norfolk. It was a hat that was effectively really the world's first safety hat because it was made for gamekeepers. Right. So back then, gamekeepers wore top hats. So if you imagine you're chasing
practical, is it really?
No, if you're chasing a poacher through a forest, it's not really the most ideal headwear to have. So the idea was he wanted something which was much more sort of compact, much harder, and effectively didn't have as much maintenance involved as a top hat. So he came into us and discussed it, agreed on the design. And we then set the design off to the factory to be made. Now, and the reason why it became known as a bowler hat is the gentleman that owned the factory was called Matthew Bowler. Right. It was the Bowler Brothers factory, so that's where it became known as a bowler hat. Now, unusually here, we refer to it as a cook hat, which is more confusing because cook is actually spelled C-O-K-E, which just confuses things a bit more. But so to everyone else, it's a bowler hat. For anyone watching this who's from North America, it will be a derby hat. Right. But for us, it's a cook hat. So and I can show you one just over here.
Oh, great! There we are. Pop that down there.
And now, obviously, with these, nice and hard. And the idea is, of course, when it falls on you, it's going to protect you. Now, this one sort of is your size. Now, normally what we would do, this is shaped to your head size. So we use a device called a conformator, which I can show you later.
Later on, be great, yeah.
And this actually allows us to take your an imprint of your head shape at 1/6 the actual size. So where you see the head shapes on the wall and Pierce Brosnan's head shape, that was taken using a conformator. And it allows us to shape a hat to fit the head, because every head shape is different, and with a hard hat you've got to have the ability to shape it to fit somebody's head.
Right, okie dokie. But that's my size there.
This is your size, so we'll pop this on. So it probably won't feel quite right yet because it has a lot more work to be done, but that's going to be sort of your shape. And what we do then is see it starts life very, very flat, and we actually can put shape into it. And if I can just show you this grey one here, and if you see this one's been shaped. So you've got a nice curve here, a nice shape downwards, and everyone's different. Some people like it sort of quite flat, but traditionally we give it a bit of what we call a curl, and that gives it the authentic sort of look.
Now I know people were more fans were writing to me and asking me to ask you. Did you do the hat for Hervé Vilches' knick-knack for the Man with the Golden Gun?
Well, no, and the reason why we didn't is quite an interesting reason is because of his head size.
Right.
Obviously very small gentleman, and the blocks the hats are made on only start at a certain size. Every hat is actually made from almost like the same thing like a last for shoemaking.
Shoes,
The same thing for hat, but they only start at a certain size and only go up to a certain size. So I'm pretty certain that hat would have had to been custom made, probably by somebody in the costume department, and it would have more likely have been what we call a soft bowler. So something they can make in felt to give it the appearance of a bowler hat, but without the hardness, to make it easier to make, because again that would have been quite a difficult job to make one that sort of size. But the nice thing about it is, of course, when you watch the film, you would have no idea it's any different to the hat you're wearing now, so they did a very good job.
Miracles of filmmaking.
Absolutely, yeah.
Also, John Steed in the Avengers. Some folks, there are other companies that make bowler hats, I do know, but is it possible, or do you know whether you did any of the hats for? Yeah,
as far as we're aware, they were, I'm not saying all of them, because again they would use different hats through different series, but he was certainly was a customer here. And we also have the pleasure. I think his son pops in now and again, and he wears a bowler hat as well. So we've been lucky enough to be involved in that as well.
I know that bowler hats are kind of making a resurgence now. I saw some photos of some guys in Italy looking very stylish wearing bowler hats, and I know that we've had hat week and so on and so forth. Trilby as well. I'd love to be able to wear a hat. One of the guys who wrote in again was saying he loves hats as an idea, but he just feels a bit awkward wearing them. I mean, when somebody walks in and asks you, have you got a style or a shape for everybody? Is it something that you could work with them and find out is there a style that you could definitely find for everybody?
When somebody comes in, the two things we get every single time, without fail, regardless of where people come from in the world, is either A, I've got a really big head, so you'll have nothing that fits me, or B, I'm not a hat person.
Right.
And that's the most common thing. Now, the fact of the matter is that it's not so much you're not a hat person, but you've probably never been fitted properly before, and you've never been advised properly before, because there is a hat for everybody. But I think that the sort of trick is to work out what you need the hat for. Once you've done that, it becomes quite easy, because there is, like if you say to me, I need a hat and I'm going to go fishing all the time in this hat, well, there's lots of hats that are no good for that.
Oh, that wouldn't be
you could do. You're going to be a bit quirky, but it would do a job. But so we would know what then to show you. So I think that is, and also it's a lot to do with we look at the person. So the person's height, their build and their frame, the shape of their face, and from that we'll look at it. And lucky enough, myself and my other colleagues, my other the hatters who work with me, will be able to look at somebody and actually, they'll probably know already what they think somebody would look good in. And ultimately, obviously, the most important thing is you wear the hat and not the other way around. It's got to be part of you. If I look at the hat first and then you, then it's not the right hat.
Sure.
It's got to be part of a complete outfit, and that's why, especially with if you look at the hats that say Bond has worn, they're never statement hats. They're part of what he's wearing. Yeah. He's wearing them for a function. It's not. There's no sort of look at me, I'm wearing a green hat because it looks cool. It's actually a hat that's complementing what he's wearing and what he's doing in that particular part of the film. So
makes sense. Now, just back to the Trilby versus Fedora debate. Are fedoras, they're more flamboyant for the dandy, maybe. You might just like Oscar Wilde wore one very, very, very wonderfully. But is it the case that you do a wide brim Trilby though, don't you, as well? Well, no,
because effectively a wide brim Trilby is a fedora, effectively, yeah. So, but what you'll find is, say, Oscar Wilde, for instance. Oscar Wilde was a customer here, and actually there's a just behind it, if you can sort of see here, there's actually a letter which is actually written on behalf of Oscar Wilde. When Oscar Wilde died, he was actually on our debtors list.
Oh, right.
And he died owing us money. And I think article was written in a newspaper about it. And this gentleman, I think it sort of quite touched him. He actually sent in a cheque to pay his debt.
£3.30.
£3.30.
Oh no, that's Demore, isn't it? Sorry,
yes, yeah. So he wrote the letter. So effectively, we didn't bank. We didn't bank the cheque. Obviously, we did write back and say, Mr. Wilde's debt is now, officially sort of forgotten about. But again, he would have worn a fedora.
Sure.
Which is a much of white, but again, very much of the time.
Sure. So, but is it also height dependent? So somebody like myself who's vertically challenged, let's say, compared to some of the taller gentlemen.
Yeah.
Would a fedora kind of swamp me, and therefore a Trilby would be more?
Yeah, absolutely. This goes back to what I said about sort of frame and height. If I were to put you in a fedora, it's actually what we call over-hatting somebody. I would be over-hatting you.
Right.
And it would actually, what would happen is when I look at you, I would look at the hat first. The first thing I think is that hat looks very big on you.
Sure.
And that's not what we want. Now, the interesting thing is, with the stand-down hat we was talking about that Connery wore was an interesting hat because he's quite a tall gentleman, and really a wider brim would actually work for him. But obviously it was a style thing then, and that sort of what we call sort of a short brim Trilby was very much of that sort of time, and just actually was probably quite cool. It worked. It was very much a choice.
Edgy.
To give him that sort of certain look, and but that wasn't in proportion. That was the opposite way around of doing things actually, but it worked.
Because he was 6 foot, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. Okay. Well, look, I want to have a go on the conformator. To be honest, I want to try a top hat because obviously we talked about Dalton and Roger Moore as well wearing one. So can we try one on as well?
We certainly can, yes, of course.
Fantastic. What have we got here, Michael?
So this is called a conformator, which was invented 1850s in France by a gentleman called Jean-Pierre Maillard. We're lucky enough to own 7 of these. They look like a torture device.
Yes, steampunk
but they are in fact the best way of measuring somebody for a hard hat. So if you imagine with a hard hat, so if we're looking at a cook hat or a top hat, because the hat is rigid, if you and I were the same head size, the size actually is not really the factor. What the factor we're looking for is the shape of somebody's head. So effectively this allows us to take an imprint of your head shape, 1/6 the actual size, which we then use to shape the hat to fit your head exactly. So you're probably one of the only people that still use this process now, and we use this on a daily basis, especially for Royal Ascot, very, very busy time of the year. So if you're okay, if you'd like to be a willing participant, I'm
always game for a laugh.
I will use a conformator on you. So we do here, put a little piece of card goes in here, and this is what we can use to take the imprint wand. So let's close it down. Now it will feel quite strange, it won't hurt though. Okay, so now I just put some pressure here. Okay, I'm just going to go to here to get this flat surface. And there is your head shape.
Can you see that, Jay? There, you come around that side and you can actually see the light peeking through. So that is my head shape. That's what we see on the wall in the Heritage Room.
Exactly.
Where you have all that.
So what we would do at this point then, actually we just trace the outline and we'll cut that out and we use that to build into a block, and we can just see a block through here actually. If you just sort of bring the camera over, it's okay. That's the block. So you can see the head shape goes into the block, and then we sort of almost effectively size it back to full size, and that's what allows us to shape the hat. So the hat gets heated, and as it softens we ease the block in and then effectively cool it down very quickly, and that's what that effectively allows it to take the shape of your head. So hopefully after that's done it fits you absolutely spot on. So
amazing.
Can I ask, through there are 2 ones of Gary Oldman. Why was it necessary to take a second one?
Okay, yes. Gary Oldman's got sort of 2 head shapes. Firstly, because he has been a customer here for a number of years. So we've already had his head shape as part of his normal fitting. The second fitting was done for when he played Churchill in The Darkest Hour.
The Darkest Hour. I was going to bring that up actually. Amazing. So you were obviously very involved in that film.
Yes, very much so. Yes. So now, if you've been here back in February, the front of the store was actually all decked out, sort of in conjunction with The Darkest Hour, and so all of Gary Oldman's hats came from us, because that's where Churchill was. His hats came here as well. So
his sartorial signatures were, I mean, the Cambridge, which we're going to look at later on, and also the Homburg.
Yes.
But obviously from here, so it made perfect sense for you to supply
absolutely,
hats
yes,
for the film. Also, you did have the hats for the new Mary Poppins film, is that right?
Yeah, we've done supplied some hats. Yes, we do a lot of film production sort of hats. Sometimes they're hats that we're not, we don't get credited in, because the productions will buy them just as sort of, a normal person coming off the street. And sometimes we actually work with the production quite closely. But The Darkest Hour, because of the fact that we'd originally done Churchill's hats, and also Gary Oldman was a very good client here, that it actually works perfectly. So we're very, very happy to be involved in that. So
what about as well, I was going to talk to you about the Kingsman as well, the Secret Service, because you feature in that. I mean,
yes.
Were you aware that Colin Firth's character was recommending to Samuel L. Jackson's character to get his hat for Ascot here, and knowing that it was going to be bugged and it was going to be...
Yes, well, the director of that film is a very good customer here, so I think he knew about us anyway. So I imagine that's where we came into it. But it was quite nice because, again, especially for American audiences, obviously it's lovely publicity for us because you get the shop front is iconic, and the shot when it comes out and you get that nice sort of widescreen sort of look at the fascia of the shop. I think is quite lovely to have. But also the fact that obviously. Colin Firth's character is obviously meant to be, somebody who obviously really sort of knows about style and elegance, and to have him, name drop us and say, you've got to get a hat from Locks. That's a wonderful thing for us because we like to think that we do, the sort of service we offer and how we fit hats is has never really changed. So we use the same methods we would have used, say, if Nelson had come in today. So nothing's changed.
Sure. And you're actually part of the Kingsman kind of spy circle as well. You're
yes,
involved.
We are.
You're a kind
yes, we are. Yes, we've got lots of hidden doors around. So yeah.
And what does Samuel L. Jackson say? Now this is a dope ass top hat. It was something like that when he walks out. That's so cool. He can look good in anything. But didn't you also do with Mr. Porter with the Kingsman range they do? Didn't you do a flat cap as well?
I think we did a sort of collaboration with them, which they sold via the website. So Mr. Porter, they will use some of our hats, which they sort of have specific sort of ideas on what they want from a hat, but effectively they will commission a little range from us, which goes through Mr. Porter. So again, Mr. Porter's been a great partner in that respect. So.
Great. Okay, should we try on the top hat quickly?
Yes,
I want
of course, yeah.
Channel my Dalton. Where were the origins of the top hat?
Well, this one in particular actually is quite interesting because top hats, as we know, were traditionally always black. And obviously in the sort of if you go back to Victorian times, top hats were silk top hats. Now silk top hats haven't been made for 60 or 70 years at the very least, so they're all effectively vintage now. And obviously when you get through to the 1950s, 60s, there was obviously a push to look for something which is an alternative, so which is where this chap came about. So this is what we call an Ascot. So it's rabbit fur felt with the contrast of the black band, and obviously the sort of darker grey what we call the binding here. And actually, I think one of the first people to wear this of notability was Prince Philip.
Right.
So Prince Philip actually favours this sort of top hat. But so we're going to try this on now, see if it works for you as well as it does for Timothy Dalton. But there we go. So that's pretty good actually.
Really good.
Look at that.
That's feel like again like a bit like Roger Moore as well. He kind of doffing his hat because you've got the royal warrant, haven't you? You've got
yes, we hold two royal warrants, one for Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and one for the Prince of Wales.
Wonderful. Wasn't it the case that when the first person brought the top hat across from France, it was a complete shot? I mean, women were fainting and
so the story goes. Yes, it was. I'm not quite sure how accurate that is, but you never know. It's a nice story, but again, if you go back to sort of the top hat, obviously the style of top hats has again even that sort of changed and evolved. And if you go through to it, if you see pictures of say. People like Isambard, Kingdom Brunel wearing top hats. They're what we used to call stovepipes. Now they're probably sort of up here somewhere, so they're quite almost comical now. Yes. But it was a fashion thing at the time. Everyone wore that sort of thing. And as time's gone by, they've obviously changed shape and things like that. But there's still top hats now, still very very popular. Obviously, if you go to Royal Ascot, you have to wear one. And weddings, a lot of people wearing the weddings now. So they're very very popular hats.
It is very curious. I've never worn a top hat. Actually, no, I fear. But when I was really young, my dad had a couple of the crushable ones, the ones that you could snap open.
They're called opera hats.
Opera hats, yeah. We had my brother and I used to try them on, didn't we, Jay? Sorry, my brother's behind the camera. We used to muck around with them when we were very young. But it's amazing. I do feel like I should be wearing morning suit or tails and going to Ascot. That's amazing. Now, similarly. The other hat that you are most famous for in the world, in the Bond world, obviously, is the square-crowned Cook, which obviously is known by most people as the odd job hat. Now, do you still make it? Is it possible to?
Yes, we still. Yeah, it's called a Cambridge or a flat top bowler, and again a hat very much made famous by Churchill, because Churchill obviously wore those quite often. And we still make them. They're wonderful hats. They're made to order now, so it's effectively a bespoke piece. Takes around about 3 months to make one for somebody.
Wow.
But the nice thing about it, if you've got one, it's a pretty unique hat, because there's not many people wearing them.
Have you got one we can have a look
I
at?
can, yeah. I can pop
let's
one
have a
over
look.
here. Yeah. So this is a Cambridge. So it's an unusual hat, because it's somewhere in between, a cook and a top hat.
Right.
But it's got that sort of quite unusual, slightly domed look to it. And again, in terms of actually the height of the crown, there's no hard and fast rule, so you could actually specify how high you wanted the crown, depending on the person. But this is actually sort of a standard sort of crown height. But the other thing about the Cambridge is it's ultra hard.
No steel rim. Is that
No,
possible to have it?
you're safe with that one.
We're okay. It's gonna.
But if that comes at you at speed, you're going to know about it.
Absolutely. This is gonna be too small for me. I've got a bigger head, but.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, that is a piece of work. But so it is possible to have one made, but
Yes.
it takes about 3. How much would it cost you for?
Probably all told about 1100-1200.
There you go. Pounds, not dollars. So yeah, but mind you, they're about the same these days, unfortunately, aren't they, with the exchange rate? But so it is possible to get an odd job hat. Talking about odd job, you did a collaboration recently with Duke's.
Yes. Well, Duke's Hotel, which is very old hotel, which is based at St James's. We do a lot of shared events with them because we're neighbours, and obviously we
Ascot
like to
as
work
well.
with them. Ascot. But one of the things, they've got a very famous cocktail bar there, and there's a lovely chap there called Alessandro, I believe, who's their sort of head head barman, and he created a signature cocktail for us, and it's actually called the Odd Job 1676. So it's obviously Odd Job from Bond, and 1676, the year of the founding of our company, and it's quite nice because it's actually a black and white cocktail to match the colours of the hat, and it has a little bowler hat on the side when you sort of buy it.
We're going to zoom there afterwards, I think, Jamie.
It's pretty strong.
Yeah, I'm game for a laugh.
Pretty strong.
I've finished my filming for the day. I think we can scoot along, have a Vesper and an Odd Job, and then I'll see you next week. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now finally, what I was going to ask you as well, because we've been asking all the companies we've been shooting. Have you heard of the Bond experience before? Because some people have, some people haven't. It's just something I want, because Michael's a paid-up member of the Bond.
Yeah,
James Bond fan
I had, because obviously I'm a huge sort of Bond fan. But it's lovely to be associated with this sort of thing, because I think the great thing about it is that a lot of these things are iconic parts of sort of British culture and film history. And I think for us to be with a company that's had as long a history as we have had, these sort of things make it, it's a sort of cherry on top of the cake in that respect. It's lovely to work with these sort of productions, but in something like Bond, which is sort of like such a long-lasting franchise, it's what a wonderful thing to be associated with. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, you obviously embrace the Bond. And what do you think of the fans, who live the Bond lifestyle? They like the fashion, or they like the experiences. Is that something you embrace yourself? Is it something you like to do yourself I think you were talking about books before. You were more of you like the literary.
Yeah, my reference point is always the books. I personally I go back to the books, because I think for me, what Fleming put down on paper, I don't think you can really better that. And you may well have your favourite sort of stories and books, but what he gave us in the character, I think, is all you really need for Bond. That's the character. It's all there. And I think the actors who have played Bond, of course, have effectively put their own spin on it, depending on the times. I think that's what's worked. He's changed. In that respect, he's changed with the times, and everyone's got their own favourite version of Bond, and that's lovely discussion, because you get fans will come in and we'll talk about that, and some of the ex-actors, as we know, have come in and we've met them and they've shopped here, and it's nice because there's probably not sort of one act or one iteration that you could sort of pin your colours to say that's the best, because they've all got different facets of the character, I think, which makes it interesting, so
it's lasted as long as it has. Yeah. Talking about that, I was going to mention, because when we first met, we were talking about Spectre. Now, there's some contention here. I know some of the guys out there think Acne produced the beanie, the woolen hat that Daniel Craig wears when he goes to Altair. But contentiously for some, it's possible that the actual hat could have come from
Yeah,
Glasgow.
as far as we're aware, it would have been a just to take it back over here.
Yeah, sure.
It's here, which is what we call a cashmere ski beanie, and it's a pretty it's a pretty discreet piece of sort of hatting, but it's nice. It's super light but super warm because it's obviously pure cashmere. So and we are I think we're pretty confident that's what Mr. Craig wore in that scene.
Okay, let's have a quick bash because there's no. Oh, you have got Lock and Co on the
yeah,
side.
no, this
there.
would have been taken off because you can actually take that off if you want to, and some people actually sort of roll it roll it all the way down as well.
Yeah.
But
let's have a look. Let's have a quick look. Because some people were saying that it was a bit too skin tight, but I don't know. You can get a bit of height on there.
well, I think a lot of it depends on the head shape.
Yeah.
With this sort of cap, it will look completely different from person to person because of how your head is shaped. So some people get a lot more volume at the top, and
Sure.
some people at the side. So it will look different from person to person.
Sure. It's a very comfortable hat. Big cashmere, obviously. Absolutely wonderful. Okie dokes. I don't know what you think, guys. It's can go either way. I'm still on the fence. This does feel great, and as Michael is saying, the actual amount of volume we've got here, the head size does make a massive difference. Great stuff. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I've had an amazing time here. It's absolutely incredible. The history, as I said before, it's everywhere you look around. It's been an absolute privilege to be here. Michael, thanks so much for all of your time.
Absolute
and
pleasure. You're always welcome to come in.
I love this place. So my wife works around the corner, so I will pop in more and more. It's absolutely fantastic. But for now, this has been Blair Ballard here in St James's for the Bond Experience. Hopefully see you again soon. I bid you a bon farewell. Thank you.
Oh, hey, you're still here. I didn't even know. Listen, while you're here, if you want, so I would actually go to this button right here and click on it, because then you actually subscribe to our vlogs. It's amazing. You get to see all the upcoming stuff first. You get notifications. It screams at you while you're at work. It's absolutely amazing. Just click on this button, hit subscribe. Just move your cursor, move.